Welcome to the First Responder Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Conrad Weaver. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hey, today I'm joined by Dr. Marvin Wayne, a retired trauma surgeon, a Vietnam veteran, and a longtime EMS physician who has spent decades shaping emergency medicine around the world. In our conversation, Dr. Wayne opens up about his time serving in Vietnam, the toll of losing patients, and the lessons he's carried forward into his career and life. You'll also hear his take on the current challenges in EMS and the importance of wellness for providers. And he'll end with a quote from his father that will leave you thinking about your own impact on the world. Stick around. This is a powerful and inspiring story. Hey, if you enjoyed this podcast and are getting something out of it, I invite you to subscribe on Apple or Spotify and then share it with one person you know. My mission is to change your view of wellness and inspire you to take care of yourself. Together, you and I can impact the first responder community. Hey, another way to make an impact on the first responders in your community is to host a screening of PTSD 911. We've had more than 80 events around the country, but there's a good chance we've not been to your city. So if you want to host a screening and bring the film to your city, please visit our website, ptsd911movie.com/screening. That's ptsd911movie.com/screening and schedule a call with my team. Let's bring the wellness conversation to your community of first responders. And if you need a link to that, it's down in the show notes. You can click on that and go right to our website. Hey, thanks again for being here. And now here's my conversation with Dr. Marvin Wayne. Well, Dr. Marvin Wayne, welcome to the First Responder Wellness Podcast. It's so great to have you on the program.
It's great to be here. Actually, meeting you was a little serendipitous, but it's actually had a pretty good effect on changing my own life as you've tried to change the lives of others.
Thank you, Marvin. I really appreciate it. So tell us a little bit about your journey. I know you had, you're a physician, you were a surgeon, trauma surgeon for many, many years. By the way, just retiring, and I'm jealous. You're 80 some years old and you're riding a wing foil thing.
Yeah, that's right. We had dinner out here, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago?
We did.
As you ventured across to Oregon. All right. So I guess I am unique, but aren't all of us in our own way. I'm no better, no worse. And, I'm the guy that says, you call me Marv, unless we're in front of patients. So I guess that's my approach to many things. In any case, my journey is a long one, obviously in sheer years, but a linear one in a lot of ways. So I'm a kid of the, 50s. I'm not even a kid of the 60s. I was actually born in the 40s. And I grew up in the inner city of Detroit. My dad was a factory worker who unfortunately died at 47 of a cardiac arrest in the ER, interestingly. But that was in those days. My mother sold hats, and then progressively life was a little bit of everything. I was fortunate enough to get a pretty good high school education. My famous high school, Mumford High School. If you saw the movie Beverly Hills Cops, Eddie Murphy wore that T-shirt, and he wore it for a reason, because Jerry Bruckheimer was my classmate. Not necessarily somebody who I had any rapport with. The only one actually from my class who was famous was Cornelius Grant from the Temptations, who I remained friends with through the years, and Linda Shea, who played Magda in Something About Mary. So there's a little bit of a connections there. In any case, I went on to the University of Michigan for undergrad. And unfortunately, when I was 19, my father died. Finances were what they were, and things got a little bit of stressed. So in my third year of undergrad, I said, well, what would happen if I started applying to medical school now? What's the worst thing anybody could tell me? And that was what most of them did. No. I got really good at rejection, a little dejection too, in any case. And then I was able, after, perseverance or whatever, to get the University of Michigan, which is where I was, to put me on what was called the waiting list. That meant you were standing and waiting. Fortunately, it wasn't like waiting for the loo. there was a determination that was going to happen at some point. The 3 days before class began, I got the option to get in. I did. I was the last person in my class. It happened because somebody dropped out who was a famous psychology professor, wanted an MD to go with his PhD. Grant came, and he didn't, and I came, and the rest that way is history. I finished up medical school in Ann Arbor. I'm a college dropout because I don't have an undergraduate degree. And, it is what it is. No one's ever asked me for that. Went to medical school. So here I am going through all this, determined I'm going to be a surgeon because surgeons do everything. Internists pontificate. Pathologists know everything, but by then it's too late. And emergency medicine was a blight at the moment on the societal healthcare system. So, the people that were in emergency medicine were docs that were had, as they say, cardiologists with presbycusia or surgeons with the shakes. And as I said, so I went, and after I was in what was called the Berry Plan, which meant I got deferred to finish my residency under the agreement that I would rather go in the Army than go to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, which is, of course, the Army's prison. And I next thing found myself on my way to Vietnam, where I served at the 24th Evacuation Hospital for my wonderful, as they would say, sunny year in Southeast Asia. It wasn't just sunny, it was wet and hot and wet. When I first got there, we were really busy, a lot of surgery, a lot of war wounds, a lot of civilian stuff we did too. And one of the things I got really interested in during my residency, I did some period of time in pediatric care, pediatric surgery, pediatric trauma care. And I decided that there might be some extension. So there was a city called Bien Hoa, about 10 miles away from us, and I'd go over there and I'd work in the provincial hospital with an Australian team, civilian team, taking care of kids. Pretty depressing. They're great people, and they were mainly helping take care of the kids of war. So I have to paint a little different picture. Let's go back to the basics of serving in a war zone. I'm not going to get into politics of today because I don't think that's useful to us of war. But the politics in those days was the concept of PTSD, of stress disorder. World War I, there was called shell shock. World War II, it was a perversion of the version of being shell shocked. And by the time Korea and then Vietnam came, real soldiers don't have PTSD. It really was not a concept. Even when they came home from Vietnam, it was either you were druggy or alcoholic, or some combination. But your mental health questions were not really questioned, nor was there an immediate availability of resources. I mean, Deer Hunter and other than movies that portrayed some of what actually occurred when you came back. So working in the provincial hospital and then working at the 24th Evacuation, which is where I was stationed, there was a stress in the generics of that, but there was also a stress in what I was doing. I took care of kids. Usually it was one or two. The hospital looked a little bit like Bedlam. Then came the siege of An Loc. An Loc was a city in central Vietnam that was placed under siege by the Viet Cong and the other forces that were working with them. And basically the idea was to starve the city out. And for a variety of reasons, our resources, service resources, were not doing a very good job of breaking that siege. So out of that siege, there were 21 children who were brought to us at the hospital in Bien Hoa. Bien Hoa was the city where the hospital was. And if I were to show you pictures, pretty depressing. If you go back, as I said, many years, you see the multiple people in wards with the only way a lot of them got food, if they were able to eat, was families brought food. Getting blood was, truly a bleeding project. You had to go and find family members and find that they were compatible and get blood. So it wasn't like a well-organized blood bank. So as I started taking care of these children, one died, then two died, then three died. And the Australians were suffering the same effect because they were there pretty much 24/7, and I was there every other day or even more. So we went through this period with those 21 kids. And, so one dies in my arms as each of these children went through the process, essentially, of dying. All that time I was there, all the efforts of the Australian group, all the efforts of our limited resources ended up with us having 19 of those 21 children die. Now, every single one of them, if they came into the hospital today, with the exception of maybe one or two, would be alive. It was pretty devastating on me. And when you throw in just our regular work, which was, busy, we were busy, not out of control busy like early in the war. I would certainly not that busy. The impact on me was really starting to take its toll. I slept from exhaustion. I just, my crankiness. Interestingly enough, I got into going over to the mess tent and helping the bakers bake. And that was my release. I didn't drink. I didn't do any of the drugs. But I got into baking. That's completely another story of how that evolved the Dr. Cookie. So we'll save that for another podcast. Yeah. So it really took its toll. So what did you do in those days? Well, first of all, surgeons don't cry. Okay. Surgeons never cry. And if you're a great surgeon, you don't ask for help. To top that off, there was nobody to ask for help. We had a psychiatrist at the base who, how do I put this in a polite way, had their share of problems. I'll leave it at that. I went and visited, and when I left the psychiatrist, I was more depressed than when I went in to visit. So I was really, really bummed about it. Now, over time, I didn't go to the hospital as often in Benoit. It was just hard to walk back in and see the new children. And I don't know that I withdrew because that's not my personality. As most people know, I'm pretty outgoing. And I don't know, it was an impact that I had no way to release. I had nobody to talk to, we talked among our colleagues, but mostly was, hey, are we going to have a purple alert party, which was when things weren't very busy. We put out a helmet that was purple on the sign that said, welcome to the 24th of VAC. And we'd have a couple of hooches rooms where people had bigger rooms and alcohol was pretty readily available because it was cheap and right across the street at the PX. And we'd have a party. Sometimes there were costume and otherwise. But that was our way of letting our emotions escape. But that's really not a great way to escape from the depressive stress of having that kind of number of people die. Now, true, the people we died in our hospital, soldiers of combat and civilians, we took care of a lot of civilians, were younger, but they weren't young in the sense of these children were between 2 and 12. So I went on, I buried that in my back, and I went on and I went back to the world. I was restationed at Fort Carson Army Medical Center in Colorado Springs.
So in all this time, you were carrying the weight of those children in your mind. What did you do with that?
Nothing. Well, I don't know what that's a great question with an indeterminate answer. I don't know. I do know that I'm very good at taking care of sick children. I'm really good at taking care of children that have been traumatized. Probably because I did pediatric trauma, some pediatric trauma during my residency, subsequent to that in wartime, subsequent to that in peacetime. And, I had, every time I saw a child that malnourished, or a child that was septic, or a child that was burned, whatever, the cast of characters that I saw during that week in Vietnam all marched across my screen, my mental screen. Never told anybody about it. I did not discuss this almost to any degree, although I did discuss the concepts of having programs in our community. I mean, we've got a support officer program that was the second in the nation after Baltimore. This is to go out and help families, help law enforcement, EMS after crisis events. But, nobody says, hey, I need help. People have to be convinced that they need help, which frequently is difficult. It's just like.
Do you think that's a big issue in the medical field, especially for those in the surgical room?
Well, not just surgical, EMS, ER. EMS has a lot of them are fire based, and again, big boys, big girls don't cry, and you don't, but they do internally,
sure,
and sometimes they should externally, which is one of the reasons, obviously, you exist in what you're doing. So, you and I talked about this. We had dinner a couple of weeks ago. How did you get into this? How did I get into it? Well, you got into it because people like me needed you to get into it. I think we do have resources in our community, better than many, but I don't think we, one, have enough. And two, I don't think we have, how do I put it? We have not only just not enough, but we have not enough recognition of the problem. Everybody talks a little bit about it, but very few people are willing to come forward and say, hey, we have a big issue. We are losing people to these emotional events. Now, we have had some, or we have divorce, or we have abuse, or we have, all kinds of things. Or we have
alcoholism.
Yeah. Substance excess, abuse, whatever, however, terminologies. But, and I have to admit that I have one of the ED docs that I shared with. I don't work the ED anymore. After 48 years, it was time. One of them has a clinic for depression. And some of his most recalcitrant patients are those in whom were in either the military or in the civilian EMS world. When we talked about having you come out and doing the program in Bellingham, the response was quite universal and very positive. Now, we got to make sure people show up. It's only going to be as universal and as positive if people come. You can give the greatest party in the world, but if there's nobody to eat the cake with you, it's a pretty big piece of cake.
I want to ask another question about.
Please,
your story.
You got to shut me up because I tend to just talk.
Yeah. So I heard that you were involved in a surgery in Vietnam that kind of made the news, or it kind of became famous, and actually was featured in a MASH episode. So am I saying that right, or am I just blowing smoke?
Well, I was actually in a movie, but okay. I'm the ER surgeon I call one evening. Life is starting to wind down a little bit at that point because everything is cyclical, and the war was they were already sending troops home. So I was in that early transition, and we got a call over the squawk box. The squawk boxes, it wasn't like you put a headset on. I put your little earbuds in. So Chopper called in that they had a 20-ish-year-old soldier who was one of our scouts that had been out in the bushes, and on his way back into the bushes had been hit with a projectile. Now, there are a variety of RPGs. Most of the ones that you see, rifle-propelled grenades. Most of the ones you see on TV are these big monsters that blow up tanks. But in the wartime, most of them were we call poppers. It was a small projectile, kind of like a grenade. It's a small grenade that was fired off, and then after it activated by spinning, so there was a spin system in it, and then when it hit the target, it was active. It got stopped. Its energy was stopped, and it blew up. So one of the scouts came through the bushes, and somebody had an I'll use the term RPG. It's just simpler than any other term I can think of. Had not put the safety on, turned when he heard the person rattling through the bushes and kind of panicked, and it went off, hit the scout in the right upper quadrant. And now it had not gone very far. The distance was short enough that it had not spun whatever number of times. Let's say 30. I can't really remember exactly what it was supposed to. And there was just this kind of bloody hole, and the guy was knocked down, obviously. And so after everybody had their panic, they got a medevac in, got a dust off chopper, and they evacuated him to us. He was wrapped with a flak jacket, which was interesting, around his abdomen. I guess he had a reasonably strong pulse. Was not a lot of pre-hospital vital signs because you often couldn't hear anything anyway in those choppers. And the vibration, oscillometrics were just coming into vogue. And so, anyway, got to us. It was coming into us. So our chief of surgery, unfortunately, I will make no names. I will make no commentary. I would say it was not one of the great surgeons of all time. Said, no, we're gonna take care of this guy. We're gonna do it outside the door. We're gonna put some sawhorses, and we have an area that's kind of heavily sandbagged, and that's where we're doing it. And okay, and I can see that this is going to not end well. Just I'll leave it at that. I don't want to, I don't want to cross anybody's path negatively, but it's not going to end well. And so when he came in, one of my close friends was a nurse anesthetist that was helping, and then our chief surgery, whose name shall not be mentioned. This was starting off with a moment of internal failure, just the way it was starting. And I went, all right, I really don't want to get involved in this. I hadn't been married all that long. And so I went in and I helped. But basically what happened was we removed the flak jacket, we removed the projectile, which had not exploded and did not explode at that point. We handed off to the demolition boys, who were probably more scared than anybody, I think. I don't know why they did that kind of stuff. But for some reason, this particular moment, because it was coming out of a body, was what it was. They took it off and blew it up. But he ended up doing quite well. He had a big hole. We had to go in and clean things out and patch he had a liver injury, and he had a bowel injury. But again, these were relatively, I hate to use the word relatively straightforward. There's also some tissue burn from the projectile itself. But the good news, it never blew up. None of us blew up. My associate put himself in for a very, very high metal, and no commentaries. And I eventually got a Bronze Star, which went off in the Never Never Land in my own mind. But in any case, we all survived. And my buddy, the nurse anesthetist, Joe, he was very grateful and remained grateful, and he remained well. But anyway, that's I'm not a hero. I'm just doing.
What do you do today to kind of maintain your sanity, your wellness, your mental health? What do you do on a regular basis to be healthy?
Talk too much. I'm really good at that. Never short on a story, and very willing to interact with other people. So to be honest, part of me is being me. I try to be mentally very sharp. I try to be very cutting edge when it comes to medicine. I try to take and work on learning to do that next step to be better, whatever that next step happens to be. And I try to be very active physically. I have unfortunately done some bad things to both shoulders, especially my right one. But I try to play sports. I played hockey till I was in my 60s. And you've met me, Conrad, all 5'4" and 118 pounds. They were all faster, bigger, nice, not nicer, but smarter or better hockey players. So I retired. I drove race cars for a while. I still do wind and water sports. Played a little pickleball. So I think physical fitness is really important. I've been a vegetarian I guess I'm a pescatarian. My wife says I'm just a pest for 58 years. And I still try to be I try to have meaning. I try to be there for other people whenever I can. There's no I in we, I remind people, everybody tells me, oh, you did this, you did that. No, I didn't do anything. We did everything. And that's something I don't think many people understand. I received not again, I need to be self-serving. I received the Keith Neely Award from the National Association of EMS Physicians in January. And I got up and I said, I don't accept this award. We accept this award. We, the people, that was a Lifetime Achievement Award. People I have impacted and have impacted me. The people I work with on a daily basis. My family. I have a wife who's beyond tolerance and acceptance. Very opposite. She's quiet, smart, and really makes impact also. She is always there for other people. And she will be there always for other people. We've had 2 great kids. We now have grandchildren. We have a great grandchild. And I'm honored to be able to travel and teach all over the world. I'm working now to try to help the Portuguese EMS community get out of the 18th century. We've helped create lots of special areas of uniqueness to EMS, video laryngoscopy, no backboards, just a whole progression of things. Working on some unique new research and projects and devices and having fun. I'm down here in Hood River trying not to kill myself on a wing foil.
That's amazing. What do you think is the biggest pain point in the EMS world?
People. Without a doubt, it's
lack
people.
of or
all the above. One, why go into it? And I'm not meaning to point fingers, but the private world does not pay well, is pretty demanding, and the benefits really vary all over the world and country. And I have one of my best friends is the head of the largest, private ambulance system in the country. And he's a good person, but he's one person in the corporate world. So the first one is that. Second one is people aren't signing up for the fire services with an eye toward EMS anymore. They're signing up toward an eye toward fire because we don't fight that many fires. And it's got a great benefit package and pays well. We're losing a lot of our great people are retiring, and that's okay. I mean, that's all right to happen in the transition. But new people coming in, depending where you are in the country, are fewer than they used to be. They're still very smart and very talented people and very motivated people. It's just their process to get to where they are is very different than it used to be. And then last of all is it's not regulatory, it's support. We have a kind of a fluttering, I'm trying to get out of politics here a little bit. We have a fluttering acceptance and recognition of EMS at a national level, state level, and local level. I come from a state that recognizes it. CPR training is very important. Okay? That's why we save lives. AEDs on every wall is important. Stop the bleed is important. Everybody should know how to take care of everybody. But we still have the street problem. We still have drug overdoses. We have a giveaway Narcan program. You want Narcan? Here it is. We'll give you a little training, whatever. So, and we think that's really reduced the number of deaths. May not have reduced the number of overdoses, but we think it's reduced the number of deaths.
Right. What needs to happen to recruit new people into the EMS world?
That's a really good question. I think I could speculate, but I think there are a lot smarter people than I am that probably know, or at least hope they know. I think showing it as a career of enthusiasm, it's not just what you do to one patient. It's what you do to one patient and their family and their children, the family being their spouses or partners, and then their children and their children's children. Where were you? What difference did something you did? Think about it. Think about the first person that we saved long-term with an AED, okay? Think about that person, and they went back to have a life and active thing. Well, I'll give you a great example. We actually are very good friends with a couple that did not live far from me, who was a save, 4 years ago maybe. And one of our local community people who just died at 96, 40 years ago, had a cardiac arrest and was saved. Went on to become a community leader, a philanthropic leader, and did some wonderful things for our community, and died at 96. So he, you look at what are we doing? We're making a difference. Wow. Our only purpose in EMS is to make a difference, a positive, hopefully difference in people's lives. And that positive includes letting somebody die who it's time. Okay? It's time.
What would you say to that medic that's out there that's struggling, who's like, man, I'm just going to go find something else to do. I'm going to go flip burgers at the burger trough, instead of doing this? What would you say to them?
Well, number one, these guys make enough money that there aren't a lot of burger joints paying that well. Minimum wage in Washington State's getting up there, but not quite that much. I would say, look at the rest of your life. What is it that is not allowing you to accept the EMS job or fire job you're doing? These guys are all firefighter paramedics in my community, or firefighter EMTs. What is the other aspects of your life that you're having a problem with? Because that's usually where the problem really lies. I got nobody to go home to understand. I have nobody to go home to emotionally support me. What am I failing? Where am I failing? Me, my associates, and our community. Where am I failing to provide an alternative outlet for your emotions? Where can I help you to help yourself? Where can I help you to be better at what you are doing? These are the key things that need to occur. And we're not doing, we're doing some. We have little bits of everything and not enough of anything. And that's why, you're going to come out to us, and we're going to hopefully impact a lot of people. We're starting.
So, yeah.
But I don't know. I think we've become a different age. The ED docs, when I started emergency medicine, we'll move away from surgery for a minute. Emergency medicine were very comrades. They were collegial. They were kind of there to help each other. Oh, you need a trade? No problem. You want me to hang over for a few minutes and help you out with this patient? No problem. Nowadays, we're society mainly, I come to work, I work my 8 hours, I finish my charts, I go home, and I get paid well. That interactiveness really has gone, it's changed. And I would venture to guess a lot of it has to do with our instantaneous society. Everything is instantaneous. Look at my watch. Oh, I got something happening. Oh, look at my phone. Oh, got something happening. But if we don't figure out the ways around and how to do all that, we're still going to be sitting and with shortage, emotionally distraught people. And it's okay to ask for help. We now are morphing. At least that's the one thing I'll give us credit for. We are morphing from when I was there and I was crying myself to sleep, And I was seeing images of these children, which I still do at times. Didn't nobody to talk to. You could talk to your colleagues, but they kind of all had that same attitude too. Well, we don't, real surgeons don't cry. Real soldiers don't cry. And we all know that's not true. That's how we got the drug problem to some degree in Vietnam. Drug and alcohol. Yeah.
Well, this has been you have a great story. You have a fascinating story, fascinating life. And thank you for what you did for our country, and for your communities that you served in. You're still making an impact around the world. So thank you for that.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to what you're doing to motivate people to look at themselves and their communities. We are only as strong as we allow ourselves to be. We are only as weak as we fail to look at ways to make ourselves stronger. I'll finish. May I finish with a quote from my father?
Sure.
Who was no formal education beyond high school. If you make waves, you will hit rocks. But if you never make waves, you'll never change the shape of the world. Thank you, Conrad.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode with Dr. Marvin Wayne. His journey reminds us of the resilience and courage that first responders bring, not just in the field, but in life. If this conversation resonated with you, please share it with a friend or a colleague or someone in your agency who could use the encouragement. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the First Responder Wellness Podcast wherever you listen. Remember, wellness is not optional, it's essential. And finally, please remember that you are not alone. And if you need someone to talk to and don't know where you can turn, you can dial 988 for help. Until next time, be well, take care of yourself and those around you, and go out and do something great in the world.